Mac Power Users, episode 661, Our Desks and Bags. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mac Power Users. My name is David Sparks, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mr. Stephen Hackett. How are you today, Stephen?
I'm good, David. How are you?
Oh, man, I am in the honeymoon. I'm loving this new room, so I'm having a great time sitting here working and talking to you about Mac stuff. So I'm all good, brother.
Yeah, we've been talking about your studio for quite a while, and you've been talking about it on the site and in the labs, and you're in it now. In fact, last week's MPU was recorded there, and under a temporary set. I think we talked about it. You had like a blanket fort you had built, which was adorable.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And but now you're a little more set up. I've been getting pictures of you moving furniture and stuff. So we thought it'd be a good time to sort of check in with that and kind of what we're doing as far as gear. And today on More Power Users, we're going to extend that topic a little bit and revisit your 2-notebook lifestyle, because I got a text from you. I don't want to say it was a crisis moment, but maybe it was a crisis moment where you thought, maybe I need a Mac Studio. So we're gonna talk through that for members at the end of the show.
Yeah, that was a rough few minutes there.
Mm-hmm.
We need to talk about that. Anyway, yeah, that's cool, man. And we are here today to talk about our bags, our desks, and a bit of the new space. I feel a little bit like I keep, imposing this on the listeners. It's like, oh, Sparky has a new room and he can't stop talking about it. But it has been quite a journey for me. And I just can't help but sit here and smile as I sit in the new space and do stuff. I made a labs video this morning and I didn't have to put up that stupid screen behind me. The background looked good. It's kind of nice when all of a sudden everything just starts working the way you wanted it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And, listeners may have pieced this together over the years, but, we try to talk about the new iOS release when it comes out. We try to talk about the new Mac OS release when it comes out. Ventura's still in beta. And it's like every week I look at the topic spreadsheet and I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep kicking that down the road a little bit. So the fall's always a little bit strange around here, but this seemed like a good time to check in on this stuff because you've had this really big change, right? And I went through this a year ago when I expanded my studio. And in fact, we talked about that on MPU 619, so that'll be in the links in the show notes. But it's a big move for you. I hadn't really put this together kind of in my mind until the other day, but like, this is sort of the most like physical representation of your dropping of the law firm, right? This is now you are full-time Mac Sparky, and part of that means you have this studio space for you to create stuff in. And so I couldn't be more happy and more excited for you, but it's kind of like this really cool, tangible thing. You've made this big change in your career, and now you have the space to flesh that out. And so it seemed like a great time to do it.
I told the story in the Mac Sparky Labs, but Daisy and I talk a lot about Walt Disney Company because she works with them and we're both fans. And after they made the Snow White movie, they made millions of dollars on it at a time when movie tickets cost a nickel. And they basically took all the money and they invested it. They bought the property in Burbank and built this purpose-built set of buildings to make animated movies in. And they designed it from the ground up for that purpose. Like the artists' offices only faced north. They only had north-facing windows, so they would never have direct sunlight on the art. They built a tunnel between two buildings because even though we have good weather here in Southern California, it still rains once in a while. But even more important, the wind blows. And, when you have these hand-painted cells and you need to go from the cell, artist to the ink and paint department, that's a separate building, and they didn't want them to be outside exposed to dust and the wind. So they built a tunnel underneath, and like everything in the structure was designed to make the production of future movies better. And that's kind of this for me, my representation of that. I realize, okay, I really want to make Mac Sparky work. And there's a couple things that really are important to me. This idea of contextual computing, teaching people that you can be productive with technology. It doesn't have to be a burden. And I want to create the space where I can do that effectively. And, it was an investment, but I feel like it was necessary. And like moving in here feels like me doubling down on my promise. And I have no problem with it, and I know this is all kind of wishy-washy stuff, but, I feel like I'm doing more good for the world as a Max Barkey than as a
Mhm.
lawyer. And I want to deliver the goods, and so I think this is what I needed, and I am just super happy to be here. I'm like, this is the second day of actual production. Last week was kind of like I had, like you said, I built a fort of blankets in here just because I wanted to record in here. But now it's like this is my space, and while it's not completely put together yet, it's getting closer every day. And man, I'm just happy to be here. So never has some person waxed so much poetic about a room, but it is, you had that same thing last year, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, there's something about saying, this is my workspace and this is where I work. And it really changes the whole environment. Even I've noticed, just like yesterday, I spent the all day in here, and at night I left, and it was like easier to
Mhm.
sit down to work because it's like, it's a separate space. And then I could go and be mindful with Daisy during dinner, or if we watch the TV together in the evening. There's just something about having that space. So I'm
Yeah.
very happy.
I have to admit, I quit listening because I started thinking about building a tunnel from the pod cabin to my house when you talked
There you
about
go.
Disney. So
Yeah. I mean, hey,
why not?
yeah. Well, it's funny that because Daisy has a couple jobs. One of her jobs is she actually gives the tours of the Burbank studio, and she's telling me, oh yeah, they shoot a bunch of movies in that tunnel. Like, she just told me, you remember that Escape to Witch Mountain movie where the rock's in it, and there's a scene in there where they're running through a tunnel. They shot it in the tunnel that was designed to move cells from one building to the next. But it's a movie studio, so they use anything. But it's kind of cool that they did stuff like that. And I actually did the same thing. My main window in this is north facing, because one of the things I learned in the old space was, because we had a bunch of south facing windows, and there was only like a few windows each day that I could shoot video, because the direct sunlight really messes it up. And just to share a little bit of my journey, so Max Sparky for me started in a corner of the bedroom. You know, I had like a little temporary desk, and so the first like 5 or 6 years of Mac Power Users was recorded from a corner of the bedroom, and that went on for a long time. I mean, and then when my oldest went away for school, she had a 10 by 10 room, and I got that. So we talked about that on the show a little bit, and so I had a little kind of studio space. But then COVID hit, and she needed to come back home, and I wasn't going to make her sleep on the couch. But also, I had learned that 10 by 10 space wasn't enough. I mean, it was really hard to find angles to shoot a video and do the things I wanted to do, and I had to have gear down in the garage because it just didn't fit. And so we decided, to add the space on. But then after COVID hit, I went down to like the family room, because it's Southern California. Our houses are small. So I was right in the middle of the house up for the last 2 years, basically. And now finally, after doing this for 16 years, I actually have dedicated space, really kind of for the first time.
And you've done this interesting thing where you have built different stations in your space. So you've got like a traditional one, like you've got the computer desk. You've talked before about your writing desk, but you also have some other areas. You've kind of segmented this out a little bit. I'd like to hear about what those are, and then why you took this approach. Like what benefit do you see from having these kind of separate zones?
Well, just, context, contextual computing, also just context in your life. Changing context really helps. And the way it works is, so our house had like a little like square. Our house has like one of the rooms pops out the back, right? So if you look at it like a floor plan, there's a big rectangle and a little square popping out the back on the right side. So the new studio space is just popping out a square on the left side, kind of matching. So two of the walls of my new studio already existed. But when I was talking to the contractors and getting pricing, And that was like I think it's a 12-foot like extension. I said, well, what if I went out 20 feet? What if I added an extra 8 feet? And they gave me a price and it wasn't that much more. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. So
Hmm.
ultimately the room ended up being 14 feet wide by 20 feet long, which is one of the biggest rooms in our house. But that gave me the space to make these context spaces. And number one, I wanted to be able to get all my gear in here so I don't have to go to other areas of the house if I want to change a microphone or something. But I wanted my computer desk set up. I've talked already about the writing desk, but I wanted an analog or writing desk set up, and I have this great desk, and I wanted to make sure that landed in here. But I have a leather chair I bought at the beginning of COVID, and I find I really like sitting in it. I'll sit there with the iPad. I'll do day one entries there. I'll do OmniFocus planning there, but it's just like a different context for it. And then one of the things that really suffered in all my prior setups was a place to shoot video. Like I would rather on more of my screencasts have my face in it as well as the video screencast. But the problem was always I never had a backdrop where I could kind of do that. And like people were walking behind me when I was downstairs. And it just, my wife's doing the laundry. I mean, it just doesn't work. And now I can actually do that. So I have set it up so I can do a backdrop of my face while I'm recording screencast, but I can also just roll a camera in front of me and set it up. I got this really cool material. It's walnut on little sheets of plywood that they fit together. So I have this one wall that is like that's the expensive wall, but it looks really nice as a backdrop. And so I've got that set up. I put plugs in the ceiling so I can hang lights. I've just kind of thought it through. So I've got a video kind of shoot space as well. I've just kind of set up little corners of the room with different purposes, and I'm still figuring it out entirely, but I'm pretty excited about it, to be honest with you.
One component of this is your video card. I don't think we're going to get super deep into this today, but you've sent me pictures of this where you have built sort of an all-in-one like video studio on this cart you found.
Yeah, this was I got the idea from some makers on YouTube who were doing something similar. And this is one of the things where having the MacSparky Labs really helps. I sent out a video to the kind of supporters, and they had a bunch of great ideas too. But basically, they make these things called video carts, and they're very like rugged, and they fold up and go in your car. And if you're a video professional, you can get one of these, and then like you go to a shoot and you pull it out of your truck, and it drops down, and it's got big knobbly tires on it, and you can move around a location and shoot video. And I thought it was a great idea, but I didn't need it because they're like $3,000. They're really expensive, and I didn't need anything that powerful. So I got off Amazon for $100, just a cart that you push around. Like I think it's made for like cafeterias or something.
That is kind of what it looks like. Now that you mention it, I could see some like carts and little pieces of pie on it.
Yeah, exactly. And but it's got rubber wheels, so I didn't need to upgrade the wheels. And I'm going to be just using it in this one room, and it's got 3 levels to it. And I got clamps, and I hooked up tripods and poles where my fancy camera is on one leg, lighting is on another leg, and then I'm going to have a boom mic with a little shotgun on it on another leg. So basically, I can roll this thing around this room and point it any direction I want and just flip a switch and start recording video. And, in the old days, the way I'd do it is I'd get tripods out and I'd put the lights on tripods and I had cords spread all over the place. This thing is like all self-contained, and like all my batteries get charged on it. And I have extra tripods and gear and stuff related to shooting video. And I can just push it in the corner. But when I want to shoot video, I can put it up. And I haven't entirely got it worked out yet. Like I do have an extra monitor here. I think I'm going to hang a monitor on it so it can be like a live feed monitor that's really big, so I can check focus. But it's really cool, and we can maybe do another show on it or talk about it another point. But yeah, I sent the picture to you because I knew you would get it. You know what I mean? It's just like people who make this stuff, it is hard to like do it. Some folks have like separate rooms in their studios where they just shoot video, and they've got like a permanent setup and they can just walk in and push a button. My room isn't big enough to do that, but with this video cart, I can be shooting video really quickly.
Yeah, that's one thing that have strived for over the years in my studio with my, I've got an overhead shooting table, and that's where I do my streaming from. And for me, I wanted that to be as quick as possible to either like go take a picture or go sit down and be on video, pretty quickly. And it's amazing, both you and I are, I think, primarily consider ourselves like podcasters and writers. Like for me, at least, video
Yeah.
is sort of an add on to that. And so I wanted that to be as simple as possible to get going. And you've taken that to an all new level with your lunch cart.
Yeah, it works great though. And I want to do more video. And now I've got the ability and the location to do it. So this is one of the benefits of this. I mean, all this really is just an investment in making better stuff as MacSparky. Speaking of which, I want to talk about the Vesta board and the whole situation.
Oh yeah. I was hoping we get to this.
Okay, so I have wanted a Vesta board for years. I just think they're super cool. I like the noise they make, but they're super expensive. And I had at one point ordered one, but then when I decided to commit to this room, I'm like, that is like $3,000. I do not need to spend, so I canceled.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was looking at it again as the room was finishing up, and I thought, I could get a nice TV for like under $1,000. And I could still put some of the like stuff I wanted to do with the Vesta board on it, but I could do more. And so I got a Samsung TV, and I hung it up just over the weekend. And what I'm doing a couple things with it. I've got an Apple TV connected to it. So like I can have it to watch stuff. I can have it to preview my stuff before I release it, when I want to just check it on a regular screen. And then the other thing I'm finding that I really like it is, I've talked about how I have a little status board iPad on my desk. I just drive it with AirPlay to that TV. And so I've got this, big 50-inch screen in the corner that has today's weather, my calendar events, my OmniFocus task list. It has the time in Memphis, the time in California, and just like all the kind of like status boardy stuff that I need. I also, because I like Readwise and because, I am susceptible to this motivational stuff, I have put up random quotes from my Readwise database. And I only haven't used it now 2 days. I really like it. Now I get that I've got the same thing on my desk because I'm mirroring it from an iPad, but I'm walking around the office all day, and I'm doing stuff in here, and being able to look up and see when my next appointment is or, whatever feels pretty good. I think this might be better than a Vesta board for what I need ultimately, even though it doesn't make the cool sounds. But yeah, I got in at like less than a third of the price, and I think probably something better ultimately for me. But that's something I just installed and I'm really excited about.
Well, it's definitely something infinitely more flexible, right? I mean, you can use that thing to show Apple events, like when that's going on, or the Vesta board is awesome, and I've seen two now in person. Like they're amazing, but definitely limited and very expensive. And so I think for your needs, the utility of it, a TV is totally the way to go. I've thought about adding one out here, and I may do that at some point for kind of a similar use.
Yeah, the one thing I did was I got one with a matte screen. I didn't get one with a glossy screen because another thing I feel like it could be a background in videos. Like if I wanted to, I could put stuff up on it and shoot a video in front of it. So there's just there's a lot of uses for it. And then I want to save this for another day, but I'm also starting to put automation stuff in. This is a room that is my room. I share all the other rooms in the house. So I'm always a little careful with automation, but I now have sensors on all the doors and the window. I've got Aqara. If you listen to the Automators, you know that Rose and I are big fans of this Aqara company. It's a Zigbee protocol, which means it doesn't use your Wi-Fi. And they are very reasonably priced things. Like I did the leak detectors all over the house, under the sinks and the toilets and whatnot. And they were fairly inexpensive. And they've got a new human presence sensor. I know that sounds kind of creepy, but it's not on Amazon yet. I had to get it from AliExpress, but it's on the way. But if it works as well as everybody says it does, it knows when I'm here and not. So then suddenly I can start tying lighting and everything as well to my presence. And there's just a whole lot of work for me to do with that. But, I've got HomePods in here. There's no reason I can't make this room like play Star Wars when I walk in the door and turn the lights on and do cool stuff. But I'm only here a couple days at this point. Give me time, but this is going to get nuts.
Yeah, I've done quite a bit out here in terms of automation and just smart home stuff. Basically every light in here is a smart light except for the overhead lights, and I'm going to change those switches out to be smart just at some point. I just haven't gotten to it. But it is a good thing to have some separate space to play with smart home stuff, because if you're like me, and I bet a lot of our listeners are too, sometimes family members aren't always hip to adding adding smart home stuff. So, an example, I recently added both my garage door and our driveway gate to HomeKit, and I was, excited about that. We could use our phones and the HomePod and even CarPlay to like open the garage and gate. But what I was told was that's fine, but it also has to work with like the regular old school openers, and
Yeah.
totally fair, right? So I found a way to preserve that, and it's good for us, I think, to have a place to experiment with that sort of thing without driving our families and people we live with crazy.
Yeah, I've been like, I put we use these quick-set locks in our house, and quick-set is famous for having the ability to user can rekey it. So like, you've got a key, you get a new quick-set lock, there's a little metal thing you stick in a hole, and you can basically change the lock to match your existing key. But they also have a HomeKit set of things, and they're a little clunky. They have 4 AA batteries in them, so they're kind of big. But I had one on the front door for years, and it's been very reliable. So I went and got one for the studio. Like, one of the things I've done now is if the door is unlocked for like 10 minutes, my Hue lights are going to turn yellow, and it's like, hey, why is the door unlocked? And I feel like I can do that to some more stuff in the house. And I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I can do with this, and this is going to become like a HomeKit lab for me, in addition to serving other purposes.
Yeah, and if you accidentally plunge yourself into darkness in the middle of the day, that's on you and only affects you. So that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
This episode is made possible by our friends over at 1Password. We all have countless online accounts, social media, email, banking. Each one of them deserves a secure, unique password to keep us safe. But that's hard to do. Look, we all have the family member that has a little index card with a bunch of passwords. I know somebody who keeps them on an actual Rolodex. There's a better way. That better way is 1Password. You can use it to create strong, unique passwords, and you don't have to remember them. They're all stored in 1Password on all of your devices. So if you're at home, at work, or on the go, you can log into all of your accounts and applications easily. It works across a wide range of browsers and devices, and 1Password stays on top of the newest OS features. So, of course, it supports Face ID and Touch ID. Of course, it supports autofill in iOS. There's this great new feature in the new 1Password for Mac where you can use 1Password to sign into almost anything, not just web pages, but applications. They seeing what's on the screen and they fill it out for you. It's a total game changer. One thing I love about 1Password is their communication. Over on the 1Password blog, you can always read about new features, explanations for features, and they've been writing this series about SSH keys, something that I'm definitely familiar with, but there's a bunch of new 1Password features. There's a new 1Password SSH agent that I've been reading about, and it's really fantastic. So go check it out. You want to go to 1password.com/MPU. There you can sign up for a free 30-day trial. And when you sign up, you'll get 20% off. Once again, that's 1password.com/MPU.
All right. So I will talk more about the studios in the future, but I'm not going to go deep in. Like I said, I feel like I've done too much over as it is over the last few months, but I'm going to do a final video kind of like show off of the room once I get it set it up, and I'll talk about that here, and we'll put the link out. and the Labs members are getting a regular diet of this stuff. But the reason we're here today is to talk about our desks and our bags. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through that again and just kind of work through what we're using and what's on our desks. This stuff is always kind of in motion for both of us. And let's get started.
Yeah, so I actually want to start with you because you have now moved your desk. You walked through this. You've moved your desk a couple of times over the last few years, and of course, your computer setup has changed. So, what does your computer desk look like now?
Well, one of the things I did, well, I was forced to do because the construction bust into the house where my old setup was, and there was dust everywhere. I had to take everything off my desk, and I took that opportunity to strip everything from underneath, and it was like an archaeological dig of technology. Whenever you do that, you'll find like a couple cables that don't go to anything.
Yeah.
You're like, what is this for?
Yeah.
Right. And so I took everything off and I stuck it all in a box. And for like a month and a half, I was just working off my laptop around the house. But getting back in the room gave me an opportunity to start from square one. I've got a now 10-year-old sit-stand desk from a company that was called Terra at the time. They're not around anymore. When I bought it, it was the number one recommendation from Wirecutter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the company went out of business or did something else. So you can't even buy it anymore. But it's a bamboo top, which I think in a perfect world, I think I would change just to walnut. Maybe someday I'll just make a walnut top and stick it on here because it just bolts on. And it's got silver legs, but it's got a motor in it and a little button next to it. So I can make it go up and down and you plug the desk in. And it does have a power strip underneath. So, my bare setup is just as a sit-stand desk, and it's connected to a UPS device connected to the wall. So, I've got a nice big surface desk here. I think it's 30 inches by like 6 feet. It's nice and big and gives me plenty of room to kind of get a lot of work done. So that's kind of my starting point is the desk. What desk are you using these days?
Yeah, so when I expanded the studio, I bought a fully Jarvis bamboo standing desk. So in practice, it's very similar to yours. I've got the biggest size they make, which I think is 6 feet long. And I did the light bamboo top. And I stand probably 25 to 30% of the time. I often stand when recording. And then I think we talked about this before when it's really kind of like, okay, you really got to like buckle down and do this. I'll stand. I find it to be a focusing thing for me. And I've been super happy with this desk. It's been in here a year now and it works perfectly for what I need.
Is that your first sit-stand desk?
It is.
And so sounds like it's landing for you if you're using it 25% of the time.
Yeah. I think it really has. Before this, I was using a door bolted, like screwed to a set of IKEA legs. And that desk is still here. That is now the base for my overhead shooting table or my streaming PC is. And that poor door, like you mentioned levels of technology. When I moved to this desk and then set the PC up over there, it was all sorts of things, all sorts of cables. Like, oh, this doesn't actually go anywhere. It was like plugged into my Mac Pro, but the other end went nowhere. And it's always fun to move and change that setup. But yeah, I've been really happy with the sit stand desk. And one thing that I'm glad I did is I sprung for the controller that has presets, so you can save the heights to a button. And I like that because I want it to be the same height every time I sit and the same height every time I stand. And so I just have those programmed as number 1 and number 2, and I can hit the button I want. And I'm not like holding a button as it comes up and like trying to remember the number of inches it needs to be. I could just hit it. It takes a second to move, and then I'm good to go.
Yeah. Well, this is an older desk, and it has programmable buttons, but they never really stuck right. So I do manually move it. But like you, I stand probably about 25% of the time. I love it. Also, I have a high chair. I've got that Capisco chair that we talked about on the show. I don't know if you remember when we talked on the show, if you just search weird desk chair, that is the number one reply on Google. But Mike Schmitz talked me into this chair, and I actually kind of like it. You can like flip it around and do different things, but kind of by default, it sits a little higher than a normal desk chair. So I kind of keep it at medium or high most of the time. Rarely do I need to drop it down to like a normal size desk. And I really do like the sit stand desk. I don't know. I guess this is me being a nerd and avocado toast eating, geek, but it does help to kind of mix things up. Like I stand often too. I've been standing throughout the show today, and we all got our little things we do, and this is one of mine. But one of the tricks to that is if you do that, make sure to buy yourself a nice mat for underneath that you can stand on. Because if you're like standing on a hard floor, it does, wear on you after a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And my studio is just a concrete floor, and I have some carpet tiles under the desk just to soften it up and help with sound reduction and stuff. But I have a standing mat that I store underneath some shelving, and I go and get it anytime it's time to stand up.
Yeah, I just push mine under the desk when I'm not standing, and then the dog takes naps on it and gets mad at me when I want to use it. All right. So another thing I had on my desk before that I'm not using anymore is I had a shelf. I don't know, a couple of years ago I got a shelf. I convinced you to buy one, and it never landed for you. And they're nice shelves. I mean, that was the idea. If you could put a shelf up that would give you like another layer of storage underneath your monitor stand. A couple things changed though. First is I wanted to declutter a bit. So that got me thinking. And then also I always felt a little uncomfortable with this Pro Display on top of a shelf because it was like one more layer of tipsy.
Yeah.
And where I live, sometimes it shakes a little bit. So I kind of wanted to get the monitor down on the desk. So this time I put it under the shelf. And then I started looking at it, and with the always on display and the new iPhone stand, where I want to be able to see the time and the focus mode. For a variety of reasons, I took the shelf off and immediately said, "Oh yeah, I don't think I want a shelf anymore." So I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do with that shelf. I'm gonna offer it to my daughter. If she doesn't want it, I'll probably give it to somebody in the labs. But I don't need a shelf anymore. So that changed.
Yeah, I ended up giving mine to my brother for the same reason. I was like, okay, the XDR is really heavy, and I think I want it just squarely on the desk.
Yeah. But then, once we get past the, kind of the mechanics of the desk, then you get into the stuff you put on top of it. And we both, I guess, let's just talk about our hardware itself. I'm using a 16-inch MacBook Pro and a Pro Display. That's like the fundamental technology on my desk. The way I use it is I put a pad of paper under the Mac because I'm just so nervous setting something like this down on the same desktop that I do occasionally have glasses of water. Now, granted, the cup I have is this nicely branded Mac Power Users Yeti mug that we sold a couple of years ago. And there's a little lever on the top, and you just close it when you're not drinking it. And so if it tips over, it doesn't really leak. But you never know. And I actually always keep the water on the opposite side for the computer. But I just got it's about an inch thick. It's a pad of paper. And sometimes I want to write some notes down on a pad of paper. I'll pull it out. But generally, it just stays underneath. And just getting your laptop an inch off makes sense. I did look at, as I was resetting things recently, some of the vertical stands, they make nice, cool stands. Like 12 South makes a couple nice ones where you can like prop up your Mac vertically. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, well, that would be cool. I could put that like on the back of the desk and then like prop it up. You'd see the Mac logo, and that would give you more desk space because this 16-inch MacBook, and I'll put a picture of my desktop in the show notes, but the 16-inch MacBook actually does take quite a bit of space, on when you just lay it down. But it's the same thing about earthquakes. I just think that, do you really want to tip it up on its edge, on the edge of your desk, this very expensive laptop? If things wobble around, is it going to, fall and break into a million pieces? I just ultimately decided to leave it flat.
So I had been using the Mac Pro since it came out at the end of 2019. I sold that and have moved to a Mac Studio. and I actually have it mounted underneath the desk. And if you look at the gear page in 512 Pixels, there's a link in the show notes. The Mac Studio, it like is in this 3D printed mount that someone on Etsy made, and it's just screwed into the desk, and the Mac Studio fits really nicely in there. There's now more options for this, but for me, I wanted it under the desk because with the Mac Pro was under the desk, and then when I had the sit stand table, it was on a side table. But I didn't want it taking up space on the desktop, and the Mac Studio makes noise all the time. The fan noise, while minor, was noticeable, and so putting it under the desk, cannot hear it anymore. And if I've got to like plug something in, I'm super thankful for the two USB-C ports on the front of it. In fact, right now I have a lightning cable plugged into it because I was charging my trackpad before we started recording, so I don't have to like dig around like under the desk to find a port, and that's nice. And so I just have it tucked neatly out of the way. It's off to the side, so I don't ever like bang my leg into it or anything. But I've been really happy with it because it kind of returns my setup to kind of like the iMac setup that I had for years. Like you just see the display, keyboard, and mouse, and you've kind of got to like, where's the computer, and kind of look around for it. And so having that stashed underneath has been a nice change for me. It's far less intrusive in the room than the Mac Pro ever was.
Yeah. And so the MacBook Pro does take space. You know, I'm not sure what the exact dimensions are of this thing, but I don't know, it's like about 14 or 15 inches by about 11, or I don't know. But if you've seen a 16-inch MacBook Pro, you know, it's a lunch tray, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple things I've done that I think are interesting is, number one is I don't put it in the traditional layout. I don't like put it like the way you would open it on your lap on the desk. I put it sideways. So the side ports are on the back and the front. So on one side, you've got two USB-C ports and a headphone jack. Well, that's the back of the way I have it on the desk. And one of those heads into a CalDigit Thunderbolt 4 Elements hub. And I have been so happy with this thing. It was expensive. I think it was a couple $100 when I bought it, which was a lot. But it gives me 3 additional USB-C, fast USB-C ports, and 4 additional USB-A ports, which with a laptop, you kind of need that. And then the flip side of that, you know, so on one side I've got the 2 USB-C and the headphone, and the headphone goes into my focal speakers. The flip side is the SD slot, an additional USB-C port, and the HDMI, and those face forward. Mm-hmm. So like me putting the HDMI card, I can reach it on my desk. It's actually kind of ideal in that regard, like the ports I need. Just earlier today, I was recording some iPhone stuff for a labs video about how I'm using Apple Mail, and I just plugged the USB-C cord into the front of it, you know, quote unquote front, and the other end into my phone, and I was able to record to that directly. So that's kind of nice. The other thing is because it's flat and on my desk, I actually put stuff on it. I've got currently a little Star Wars statue that is not very heavy. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to put a brick on top of it, but, you know, things that are not too heavy. And I've got a book on there that I've been reading. And so it's fine, you know, but that's kind of the setup. But really, if you're going to do a laptop like I'm doing and you've got a lot of inputs and outputs, this Elements hub is a definite thumbs up from me. Because I had different hubs and none of them seemed to work. This one I've now had for when they released it, I bought it. So it was, I think, about a year ago, about October. And it's just rock solid. And one of the things I did with the new setup is I used gaff tape as my weapon of choice for the underside of this desk. And I gaff taped the hell out of this thing underneath the desk. So in fact, I'll put a picture too of that. I'm going to update my gear page at MacSparky, but right now it's out of date, but I don't want to update it until I finish the studio setup. But I put in like cross pieces and reinforcement pieces because I really want that thing to stick under the desk so I can just route all that cabling under the desk and into that thing.
Yeah, the Mac Studio gives me just enough ports to do what I need to do. In fact, every single port on the back of it is taken up with something. And as are the ports on the back of the Pro Display XDR. So it's I for a while ran CalDigit, like the TS3. I think it was an older Thunderbolt dock, and it was
Yeah.
fantastic. But with the Mac Studio, I was able to get away with just having just the machine. But the Elements thing looks fantastic.
Yeah, and continuing across the desk with technology and bric-a-brac. I just bought the HiRise 3 dock for the phone. This is part of the new, always on phone. This is one of the reasons why I got rid of the shelf. So it holds the phone at an angle that like matches my eye. The HiRise is nice in the sense that you can charge your AirPods on the base, you can charge the phone on like the front, and you can charge your watch on the back of it all at once, and that's kind of nice. I know that I forget what's the company that you just ordered one from.
Studio Neat.
Studio Neat. I know they have one in progress, and maybe I'll get one of those for the upstairs, or move this one upstairs and get one of those for downstairs. But for now, I'm pretty happy with this HiRise, and it's just one cable, which is really nice too. It's got a USB-C cable, and I don't know if it charges as fast as it can, but it's fine and does the job for me. I'm using on the audio end. I'm using the Wave XLR audio interface, which is not as nice as some of the better ones, but I really like this one because it's obvious. Like it's got a touchpad on the back where I can mute. It shows me the levels, and it's just a big knob. And for someone like me, it's kind of idiot proof. Just continue with some of the tech on top of my desk. The Stream Deck XL, I love it. I continue to love it. On the Stream Deck, if you are looking to create better Stream Deck icons, there's a great app called Button Creator. I think we talked about it on our Stream Deck show, but I just continue to love that app. Just yesterday, I was adding a bunch of new buttons with the OmniFocus 4 beta, which is out now, by the way. That's kind of cool for the Mac. But I was adding some additional automations for that, and I made a bunch of buttons in Button Creator. And then I have the 12.9-inch iPad, and that kind of gets back to this idea of the status board on my desk. I love having it there. It shows me everything I'm up to. And this is duplicated over to the status board TV, but it's got current timer, accumulated time for the day, local time zones, calendars, OmniFocus, weather, and Readwise stuff on it. And I use that all the time. A couple things I did with that is I got a right angle cable off of Amazon. And so when you plug it in on your desk, it's not sticking out the side, which was annoying to me. And I was able to route that cable subtly behind it. And I've got the whole thing on a draft table iPad stand, which really looks nice. And I can adjust the height if I want, but generally it keeps it just at the right height for me. So that's kind of a summary of the tech on top of my desk. And then I have a set of speakers. They're Focals that we talked about this on the show previously. I got these like over 10 years ago. I reviewed them, and then they said, okay, send them back. And I said, how much money can I send you to keep these? And they sound amazing. I still don't like that I have to see them on my desk. You know what I mean? But they sound amazing, and I don't regret it. So I've got that with a subwoofer underneath.
Yeah, I'm still using my ancient sound sticks, and the right one is still hot glued together. It hasn't failed me yet.
What's the tech on top of your desk?
Yeah, so mine's pretty similar to yours. I've got the big Stream Deck, the XL, and it's fantastic. Full of buttons that do all sorts of things. See previous episode. I put it in the show notes. I've got my sound sticks, and I'm using the Pro Display XDR like you are. And my audio stuff's all outlined on my gear page, but I've got a mix pre and a mute button and a mic arm, all the podcasting stuff as well.
Yeah. I still have the Elgato low profile mic stand, mic arm, which I love. I didn't mention earlier that I also keep 2 hard drives. Mm-hmm. You have infected me. Now they're both SSD. Over the years, I've been kind of swapping out the spinning drives for SSD, but they're 2 little metal cases with one has a Time Machine drive in it. The other one is like archive storage. And I have stacked those behind the Pro Display. I sent you a picture. It's not as bad as it used to be, where I had literally taped them to the monitor arm.
Mm-hmm.
But it is kind of bad. It's behind the stand, and I have also gaff taped those as an earthquake measure so they don't roll around back there. But I don't see them generally. That's why I didn't mention them earlier. I forgot they were there. And I added, we talked about our Opal cameras that we've put on our machines, and I added one of those Elgato lights because my new location doesn't have a window behind it, so I need to occasionally light myself a little better. What do you got under your desk? Do you have anything else under your desk?
No, that's really it. Just the Mac Studio stuck up there and a battery backup that's completely unremarkable.
Yeah, I have, with this new setup, I have much less under my desk. I just got that hub, and other than that, I've got some cabling and lots of gaff tape. But it looks, the underside of my desk looks better now than it has in a long time because I was able to remove so much extra stuff. You want to talk about bric-a-brac?
Yeah, I like knickknacks. I mean, you could say my entire studio is full of them. Some of them are just Mac shaped. But I've got a wooden trophy from my Connected podcast. I have a 3D print someone made me of the statue that stands outside of the St. Jude Hospital building, which I absolutely love. And then other kind of like relay paraphernalia, gifts we've given over the year. Like we did a walnut wood block our first year and some other stuff like that. And of course, I have a bell because I host tech podcasts. So got to be able to ring your bell at any given moment.
Yeah, I have one too. You gave it to me when we first started together, and I love it. Except mine has a little stormtrooper helmet on the bell head that I found in the yard. I've got various bits of Star Wars.
You found it in the yard?
Yeah, I was out in the yard, and because I have a bunch of stuff. So let me just tell you about the experience of coming to the Sparks house as a 7-year-old boy. I have a little, like, you know how people have umbrella stands? I've got one next to my back door with like 6 lightsabers in it and little plastic Star Wars guns. And then I've got a bucket of Legos, various Star Wars Legos I've picked up over the years. And when you come to my house and you're a little boy or a little girl, I just open all that stuff up and say, go crazy. Mm-hmm. And they love it. And so the contractor, his son came over with him a couple weekends. And then he told me that he wanted to come with him now every day to my house because, we make it fun. But yeah, so one of the kids was playing with a stormtrooper out there, and they, at some point, the little helmet fell, and I have rocks in my backyard, so they're very easy to lose. And I was out pulling weeds, and I'm like, hey, that's a little stormtrooper helmet. And he looks like he's been through the war. He's super dirty and like beat up. And then I thought, well, I'll just put it on my belt. But yeah, I have various bits of Star Wars. My relationship with Star Wars is very unhealthy. But I love these Ryan Holiday like challenge coins, and I've got a couple for some of my shows like Mac Power Users 500. And I have a drawer full of those. And I always put 1 or 2 of those out just to look at when I'm sitting here. I have a thing I got from it's a Kickstarter project that's ongoing called the Focus Timer. I did a little video for it on YouTube. And the guy who made it, I don't really know the guy, but he sent me one. And he offered to send me one. I said, don't send it to me. I don't need more stuff. And then he sent it to me anyway. And I really like it. It's just a little electronic, like hourglass where you spin it and it does timing. So like if I want to say, okay, I'm only going to do email for 30 minutes, I'll set the timer for 30 minutes and then it goes off and it's visual and it's kind of nice. But other than the rotating bit of Star Wars stuff, I don't have a whole lot on my desk. Oh, and I have a great pin. I got the Apollo. I think they call it the Apollo pin. You recognized it when I sent you the picture, but it's a stainless steel pin from Studio Neat, and the weight is amazing. It's just a great pin. I have some fountain pins and stuff, but this is the one I just keep on my desk, and I always have use for it. And I keep some note cards on my desk as well, where I can write stuff down real quick.
Yeah, this was a special edition Mark I by Studio Neat. That there was a Kickstarter that ran for 8 days to mark the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. I've got one too, and it's really awesome.
As I was finishing the studio build, a listener sent me a link, as they do sometimes. And Orbit Key, there's a company called Orbit Key. They made a Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi desk mat. And I bought it, I'm like, why not? Right. But it's got a very subtle, like, Rebel insignia on it. And it's just really well made. It's got a magnet strip across the top with a little thing where you can hold cables. It's faux leather. It's not real leather, but it's got felt underneath. But you can lift the leather and put like a document underneath and just keep your desk really clean. I've only had it now for a week, but it's also very nice. So I like that. I do like having a leather pad on top of my desk or something like it.
Yeah, this looks really nice. I never remember if that's embossing or debossing, but however they smashed the logo into the corner of that, it looks sick.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by TextExpander. Go to textexpander.com/MPU to get 20% off your first year and sign up. I've talked in the past about how I use TextExpander for my own personal productivity, but did you know TextExpander can also be good for your team productivity? With TextExpander, you can get your team communicating faster so they can focus on what's most important. With TextExpander, your team's knowledge is at their fingertips. So get your whole team on the same page by getting information out of silos and into the hand of everyone that needs to use it. I remember one of my old jobs, they had a Microsoft Word document where they kept repeated text phrases. That was nuts. Of course, in very little time, there were multiple copies of the Word document and different copies of the words. TextExpander lets you solve all of that. You can share your team's knowledge across departments, so your team is sending a unified message to your customers and isn't spending time reinventing the wheel. So here's how it works. First, you store it. You keep your company's most used emails, phrases, messaging, URLs, and more right within TextExpander. And then you share it. You get your whole team access to all the content they need to use every day, and you can organize it by department, and then you can expand it. Deploy the content you need with just a few keystrokes on any device across any apps you use. I even find it in my little Sparky Media company. I use a TextExpander for Teams account. I update things in there that some of my helpers use all the time. So if we get a new magic URL or if I change some language, their text expansion just updates. They do the same expansion, but they get the updated text every time, and it's really that easy. TextExpander is available on Mac, Windows, Chrome, iPhone, and iPad, and you can get 20% off your first year. Just go to textexpander.com/MPU. I really believe TextExpander is a great personal productivity tool, but as you can see, it's also a great team productivity tool. So go check it out. Once again, textexpander.com/MPU, the original sponsor of the Mac Power Users, TextExpander, and we thank them for all of their support.
So let's turn our attention to our bags. You and I did a live stream the other day on my channel, kind of going through this, but we get a little bit deeper now. You have, over the years, talked up the water-filled bags, sfbags.com. They've got a bunch of different bags, you and a couple of them. And I made my first purchase from them. I got the Essential Laptop Backpack, and it's black, sort of nylon, and it uses their gold honeycomb pattern interior. And I've been really happy with it. It's only been a couple weeks, and actually next week I'm on vacation, so I'm going to take it with me to the beach. But it has been really nice. I wanted something that was a little dressier looking than my burnt orange Tom Ben that I loved and have had forever. But this has been a nice upgrade for me.
Yeah, I think the problem was because I always get the leather looking ones. I've always said I want my bag to look like Indiana Jones was using it, and that's not your thing. And I didn't realize, I hadn't really told you, but they make like black bags and kind of more formal looking bags than the dirty Indiana Jones ones I'm carrying around all the time. But a lot of their line, they have those options, and I don't know. I like the company. I started buying them because I just admired them at going to Macworld and seeing people use them. But I also like that they're based out of San Francisco. They do manufacturing there. They seem like kind of like solid folk. At this point, I have given away a lot of the ones that I've purchased over the years, and they're all still in circulation. The one I'm currently using isn't even being made anymore, but they make a lot of that ilk. They have in fact which one did you buy?
The Essential Laptop Backpack.
Yeah, that's a really nice one with really clean lines. Another one that I really like that is currently for sale is the Bolt backpack, and it's got nice pockets and it's got water holders and stuff like that. So that's also nice. They've all got the orange lining inside. If you watch the video, we kind of shared our bag experiences, but I'm a fan of their stuff. I also have another one that I use all the time. It's called the Sutter Tech Sling, and that one just goes over one shoulder. And I'm really careful about that because as you get older, you don't want to like put too much weight on one side. But if I'm just taking like an iPad and a couple little things with me, I like that Tech Sling because it just goes over one shoulder and it's not very heavy. But I'm a big fan of their bags.
One thing that I've struggled with over the years, coming from my previous career, is like, what do I actually need in a bag? And when we were going through our live stream, I realized like, oh, there's a lot of tech in here that I've kept either from like my days a long time ago, from being a tech consultant, to even stuff that I would use a lot in our live shows, which of course we haven't done for several years now. And I've really tried to focus on what I need now. So there's a bunch of stuff that I pitched out of my bag after our live stream. But one thing that's made a huge difference for me is just the existence and then my moving to the M2 MacBook Air, which is your sort of portable machine as well. It's so thin and light, you hardly notice it in your bag, which is incredible.
It's great. We forget it's there. I either take the M2 or the 11-inch iPad. It just kind of depends on, what my plans are. Like the iPad is probably the one I take the most because it's got the always on internet connection. And if I need to do something quick and dirty, I can do it on that. If I want to actually work, I bring the Mac. So don't take that wrong, iPad lovers, but the Mac is more powerful for me. And then the thing with the M2 is like all of a sudden you don't have all the ports again, and one of the things I noticed like in our videos, you actually carry a lot of dongles. I actually don't carry any. I mean, when I bring the M2, I'm usually just bringing it to do stuff. If I'm going to present, that would be a different story. I think I would make a point of adding dongles, but generally I don't feel like I need them.
Yeah, there's some that I could get away with not carrying for sure. I just tend to want like anything I may encounter. I want in there, and we're gonna talk a little bit later about the idea of a tech go bag. But I think with the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro, a lot of people can get away with not carrying some stuff because it's got more ports and it's got an SD card reader and that sort of thing. But I definitely have quite a few. Something else that I have really consolidated down into one sort of smaller package is having a little wall charger that can do everything. So I'm using the Minix 66 watt Turbo 3 port GAN wall charger. What a name! And Gray had recommended it on Cortex, and I've been really happy with it. Well, I say I was happy with it until you showed me what you're using, which is a multi plug charger, 2 USB-C and a USB-A, but it also has a battery in it. So it can be a battery bank and a multi-charger. And you blew my mind the other day on the live stream.
Yeah, this is a thing. They just Anker released this like 3 months ago. I bought it right before we went on vacation, and I love this thing. It's the Anker 733 power bank. It's a 10,000 milliamp hour battery, but it's also a 30 watt. Actually, it's a 65 watt charger, and so you can plug it into the wall, charge your device at 65 watts. At the same time, it's filling up the battery. So when you get, like if you go on vacation or travel for work, you can have this thing, plug it in and charge or run your device off of it. But in a jam, you can also pull it out of your bag and use it as a battery. And that's kind of awesome, right?
Yeah. In fact, I ordered one as soon as we got done with the stream. It gets here tomorrow.
Yeah. So it's 30 watt off the charger and 65 watt off the wall. So you could run an M2 MacBook Air on this, I think. I haven't tried to power the M2 MacBook Air because it's always got enough battery for me. But I love having this thing. It's got 2 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A port on it. Like Anker does now, they have little indicator lights to show you charge level, which I think is nice. and the little plug that goes into the wall folds into the device, so it gets square. Yeah, it's just a really nice thing. And I did a post on it at MacSparky once I started realizing how much I love it, and I've heard from a lot of readers that bought them and
Hmm.
like them as well. It's just a nice idea,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we'll see more of these from other manufacturers. I continue to be a fan of Anchor. It's like with batteries, you just never know. Like if the manufacturer is doing it right, and Anchor always seems like they do it right. You don't have to.
Hmm.
You may see somebody that sells something similar cheaper, but you don't recognize the name, and you don't want it to catch on fire or something.
Hmm.
And Anchor, it's like I just trust them. So I've been buying batteries from them for a long time, but this is by far my favorite because it's 2-in-1.
One thing that I'll add, I don't have a great solution for this because what I've bought in the past comes in like a pack of 6 or 8. But with these multi chargers, sometimes or usually they're kind of bulky. And if you're in a hotel room, maybe the only outlet is like at the base of the lamp or something. So you can find like 6 inch long or foot long heavy extension cords that, would plug into like the lamp socket or something and make this more accessible. If you travel a lot, I recommend throwing one of those, like maybe in your travel bag, because I've definitely been in the situation like, oh, I want to charge on my stuff on the nightstand, but it won't actually fit with the way that the power is.
Yeah, I have several of those too. I bought them as a pack, and I got the ones that have like an LED inside the plug, so that power is flowing through it, which is really great, like for your media closet, just to make sure. Oh, is this thing actually powered?
Hmm.
But then I took one on a trip, and I was like, wow, that's lighting up the entire hotel room. You know? So just give that some thought before you order them. But yeah, those are useful, and those are also useful for things like your media closet, where you never have enough of those power brick items where they've got the wide one where you can put the wart on it
Yeah.
for your various devices, so you can use these to extend that out off your power brick.
Yeah, I've got several of them plugged into the back of my battery backup that's under the other desk, because underneath my overhead table, that desk underneath has a bunch of like HomeKit hubs and stuff that I need, just like random things. And a bunch of that stuff comes with power bricks. Like, and it's such a pain to plug them into a battery backup. So I've got several of those, like this little, 6 inch or 8 inch extension cords to make life a little more livable.
One of the things that stood out to me when we were talking yesterday is how little of the stuff in my bag these days is tech related. It's all kind of compressed, right? I mean, I've got the usual assortment of cables, as we all do. I've got a battery, but in general, my bag is really kind of like glasses and tissues and pills and keys and things like that. But the technology bits have compressed for me, but they're all very useful. Like I find an AirTag in a bag is like really great. And not only does it help you if you lose it, but it just gives you that kind of peace of mind. Like if you travel and you suddenly have to put it on an airplane, you can actually watch it come to the terminal, and you can make it beep if you forget where you put it in the house. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the AirTag and the bag trick.
Yeah. And a lot of companies make little holders. So I've got a couple from Belkin just so the AirTag is not loose in a bag. Apple sells some.
Yeah.
Apple's are really expensive. Belroy, I think, makes some. Waterfield sells them. Like a bunch. You can find one in your style, is what I'm saying. And having the ability to like attach it to a key lanyard or something in your bag, so you always know roughly where it is really nice. I prefer the Belkin one also for the suitcase. They have one that's like, instead of a fabric like a leather loop, it uses a braided steel loop, and you put it on with like a hex key, like it is not coming off. And I've got one of those on the outside of my suitcase, and that's fantastic when you travel.
See, I put it on the inside of the suitcase with the idea that I wouldn't need to, worry about it like getting knocked off or anything. And it works fine from the inside. I just coincidentally had to change the batteries, and I hadn't done that in my AirTags, but a bunch of them suddenly started giving me the low battery warning. And again, that was super easy. I mean, it's like I know, we should expect that from any company, but with Apple, right? Sometimes you're like, are they going to give us a changeable battery? They're going to make us buy another one. And no, they made it really easy. You push them together, twist them counterclockwise, and you just drop a new battery. And I got a pack of batteries for like $5 off Amazon with like 10 in it. And I'm off to the races again with these AirTags.
Yeah, I've done. So I keep one on my keys and one in my bag, and both of those I recently replaced. But if you don't use an AirTag very often, they seem to last longer. But yeah, it just takes the CR2032. Like I bought mine at the drugstore, and it takes 2 seconds, and you're back in business.
This is totally unrelated to the show, but this is a power tip for everybody. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to a remote I got off Amazon. It is I think it was $8. No, it's $9. And it's very rugged looking, but they have different colors. And the key is it has an AirTag sized hole in the back of it. And if you have kids and you've ever looked for the remote, you will want one of these. So I put it on and it's amazing, right? I've already had to do the thing where you open the Find My app and have it ring the bell. And it's the first time you do it, you're like, that's the best $9 I have ever spent.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done that yet?
No, but I need to because my Apple TV remote goes missing all the time.
Okay, I'm going to put this link in right now. Apple TV remote. Okay, we went off the script a little bit here, but
no, it's good.
This is worth it, man.
An important thing.
And they have different colors, so you can get get a red one for the kitchen and a green one for the lounge or whatever, so you know which one is which. And I recommended this remotes on Mac Power Users years ago because they made a magnetic one, which was nice, where you could like stick it to the fridge. But the AirTag thing is way better. I mean, it's like great. It's just a piece of molded rubber. I mean, it's nothing fancy, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, my kids have a tendency to lose the Apple TV remote in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, or even like, and my couch isn't super fancy, and sometimes it just falls between the cushions, and like you just it zones in and it makes a sound. It does everything you need to find the remote. Getting back to the tech in the bags, though, Daisy and I are trying to shoot these videos when we go to Disneyland occasionally, and I have kind of evolved. You and I've talked on the shows about different cameras and options. But I've really evolved to kind of just shooting with the iPhone because it's a great, little piece of gear and it's already in my pocket. And there's a couple things I shared in the video. I've got the Glyph, the Studio Unique Glyph, which is the best iPhone tripod mount that's ever been made, in my opinion. And they make a little wooden handle, which is great because when I go through security at Disney, it doesn't look like a selfie stick. Although sometimes they think, I don't know, they give me a hard time about it anyway, but it's a piece of wood that you screw onto the Glyph. And then I started looking at microphones and talking to people that do this stuff. And I was recommended by a lot of people to get this microphone. And it is I believe, Rode. It's a Shure MV88. Which is a little expensive for a mobile microphone. It's $144, but it really is great. And it has a lightning port on the bottom of it. I've had it now a year and a half, and it does. The microphone on the iPhone is good, but if you want to get directional audio, and even if you're just like talking to family members or recording a relative or something, this just does a much better job. The only thing I don't like about it is it's got a lightning port, and all rumors are that in a year, the iPhone's going to get a USB-C port. So I feel like I've got a year of use left out of this thing. Mm-hmm. So be warned, if you're someone who upgrades your phone every year, I think you're only going to get a year out of it, but it fits in your pocket and it is a great little microphone if you want to improve your iPhone video.
The only thing for me that I haven't really touched on, and I actually forgot to mention it on the live stream, was I have a rechargeable little flashlight. It's the Olight S2R2. It sounds like a droid name, but it charges R2, with it. Basically, it's MagSafe. Like it's their own little USB rechargeable deal, and my wife and I each have one. I bought one for her for Christmas or something one year, and she really liked it. And so I ended up just buying one for myself. And so we have two of the chargers, which is nice. And that stays clipped in my bag, or it's either there or in my nightstand. It kind of lives one of two places. But you'd be surprised how many times you need a flashlight when you're out and about.
Yeah, and I talked about it on the show too. I have one as well. Mine is not as nice as this. I'm looking at yours now. But it's very small. It runs on, I think, a AAA battery, and I just find so many uses for it. And so it's connected to the little key fob that also has my AirTag on it. And I just find a lot of uses to have a flashlight. Sometimes to look in my bag, but often for other reasons. In fact, after we recorded that show, I got thinking, I feel like maybe I just need to keep a flashlight in my pocket. And I use the iPhone one all the time, but it doesn't give me the focused light that these little LED lights do. And usually that's where the iPhone falls down for me. It's like when I'm like digging in some cables or something and just trying to figure out if something's plugged in. I may get a small one for my pocket. I don't know which one I'll get yet, but and flashlights is definitely like a fetish thing where you can like spend way too much money on a flashlight.
Oh yeah.
And,
I probably did. I know I did.
I haven't gone down that rabbit hole. I'm usually looking for something that, $10 to $20. But yeah, carrying a flashlight in your bag is good. Maybe in your pocket's not a bad idea either.
Mm-hmm. This episode of MPU is made possible by Electric. When you think of the phrase boss move, you might think of making a bold business decision or maybe giving a great presentation in front of a big crowd. The reality is, sometimes being a boss in a small business means sorting out the orange juice you spilled into your own keyboard, or helping a staff member setting up their new laptop. The team at Electric know small businesses, maybe like yours, face these challenges. That's why they've solved this problem for you by operating as your IT department. Instead of spending your time sorting through unused application licenses, setting up employee laptops, and answering never-ending IT questions, you can focus on building your empire. With Electric acting as your IT department, you can get back to what you're good at. Plus, you get a really cool IT platform to see and manage everything. Delegation is so important when you own a small business. Trust me, I have learned this lesson over and over the last 8 years. And with Electric, you can turn over your IT needs to professionals, and you can focus on what made you the amazing business founder that you are. For MPU listeners, Electric is offering a free pair of Beats Solo 3 headphones for taking a qualified meeting. Just go to electric.ai/MPU. That's electric.ai/MPU. The link is in the show notes. Head over there now to get your free pair of Beats Solo 3 headphones today for scheduling a meeting. And my thanks to Electric for their support of the show.
One of the cool things you had in your bag is you had like a Tech Go bag. And that is something I'm really interested in. Tell me about yours and how you set it up.
Yeah, so I'm just using a Tom Ben snake charmer. Again, most bag companies make these now. And for me, it's like I can grab one thing and know that all the adapters and chargers and stuff that I carry are in the bag or not in the bag. So in there, I have a dedicated MagSafe charger for my laptop. Actually, I think I think I have the 61 watt in there, so it will also charge the 14-inch MacBook Pro that my wife uses. And then the various adapters and dongles that I use, and some a couple USB-C cables, a spare lightning cable, that sort of thing. And so if I'm taking my backpack where I don't need any tech, I can take the whole thing out and leave it on my desk. And the idea is that I don't ever go rooting around in there for things to use in the office or in the house. And so it is sort of a standalone thing that has been really useful for me. I've used it for years, and it's gone from backpack to backpack for me, and just nestled in at the bottom of the bag. And I know that if it's there, I've got kind of the basics that I need no matter what. But the key is not to fish out of there for something else.
Yeah, see, I had one of these years ago, and my kids figured out that I had it, and then it started to slowly deplete. But I think it's a good idea. Like, and like the stuff I've talked about so far, which is the GAN charger and basic cables, that is always in my bag. But like when I'm going to presentations or on a trip, like to have an additional set of adapters and readers and maybe, flash memory and stuff like that that I want. I think that would be a great idea to just keep it and have it, like you said, in a set bag that I can just put in and go. That's going to be a project for me to put that together. I probably already have all the stuff I want to put in it. I just got to figure out which bag I'm going to get to do it in.
Yeah, I think something small that's self-contained, like the Snake Charmers, is what I've had for a long time. But you can definitely get
Yeah.
something that looks nicer or matches your aesthetic a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, I just need to like put it together. First, I need to assemble all the stuff I want to put in it, then pick a bag to fit the stuff that I have. Other kind of bag related gear, iPhone cases. What are you using?
Yeah, so I've got the iPhone 14 Pro. I have the orange leather case, which I really like. But just this weekend, I also picked up the Storm Blue silicone case.
Yeah.
Because the orange was a lot for everyday use. And actually, I've come to really like the silicone cases. Sometime
Yeah.
in the 13 Pro cycle, my leather case like started falling apart, and I had a silicone case. I just put it on there, and then it ended up sticking. And so, yeah, I like the Apple cases. I know there are a lot of third party options, but I found the Apple ones to be pretty nice, and you can get them on day one, which is nice.
Yeah. The Apple stuff is cool. I got the silicone case last year because I just didn't like the look of the leather ones. But those are cool. I just have the orange leather one from Apple at this point, but I just ordered the Peak Design iPhone case because I have a bunch of their accessories and I like their cases. And so I ordered that one. That was like, I think $40. I'll get a link. But yeah, Peak Design makes cool cases with, they've got like a mounting cube on the back that you can mount into. So if you want to like put it on stuff. And I also have the Peak Design wallet, which I like better than the Apple wallet because it's got a little like flap on the top with a magnet closure. So you just don't have to worry about stuff falling out. In addition, I don't use any iPad cases. I mean, I do use the Super Genius cover keyboard? What do they call it? Apple's,
Magic Keyboard.
Yeah, it's made of gold. It costs as much as some tablets. Yeah. Well, I have one and I use it. I just have one for the 11-inch. I don't have one for the 12.9-inch. Yeah, for the iPad, I don't really have a whole lot other than just the keyboard case.
Yeah.
And Apple Pencil. Do you use your Apple Pencil much?
Nope. Hardly ever.
Yeah. I use it all the time.
Could have skipped it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm using the iPad Mini. It does not come with a keyboard, but I'm using the Smart Folio from Apple, which is like a silicone case, but it's on the front and the back. And of course, I have it in electric orange because that's an option. And it's pretty sweet. Just covers the front and back of it without adding much bulk, which is something I appreciate.
I put mine. I use my pencil primarily with GoodNotes. I do take a lot of notes there, and they're very easy to export to like day one if you want to just write down some stuff. But I don't have a whole lot on the iPad. The nice thing about the iPad is you don't need a lot of accessories. Somewhat related, again, a little off topic. Have you ever printed a book from day one?
I have not.
Okay, so I just yesterday got in the mail my first printing. I was thinking about this. I'm like, well, I should do this because I've got like 10 years of entries in day one. So I said, well, I'll just try 2021. And it ended up being 4 volumes. But it looks really nice. If anybody out there is doing day one journaling and you want to have a nice hard copy, because I had been like saving off PDFs and trying different things, but I am sold on this day one printing now. In the future, I'm just gonna once a year print them and just stick them in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I definitely did it back in the iPhoto days, and
Yeah,
even now in Photos, there are a bunch of third-party plugins and stuff. I've used Mimeo in the past. In fact, they're who print the 4x6 prints for my Kickstarters. But
yeah.
I need to check out the day one because I think it would be interesting. And it's one of those things that kind of joins the digital and the physical, right? Like my kids love pulling out our old iPhoto books and like looking through the time we went to Disney in Florida, or like, we've got one for each of them their first few years of life, and they like to go look at baby pictures and stuff. So, but yeah, I think it's really cool that Day One offers it. I'm not sure I'd print my journal and have it where my family could just flip through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Until I'm dead. After I'm gone, who cares? But it is cool.
And what I did with mine was I do have my personal entries in it, but I also have a IFTTT rule that sends Day One every new blog entry at MacSparky. So I thought, well, I'll put that. That's one of the reasons why it expanded, is because I had a bunch of blog entries. But it's kind of nice kind of seeing what I was thinking and what I was doing and what was going on the blog at the same time. It's just kind of an interesting thing. I did it as an experiment. I'm going to write about it or video about it at some point, but it was nicer than I thought it would be. And the print quality is really good.
Yeah, it's good to hear. How long did it take to get them?
Like a week. I mean, it wasn't long at all. But I did it wrong. I didn't really understand what I was doing because it put it into 4 volumes. I should have had separate artwork for each season because it's basically one every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't do it right. But I'm going to print some more years and get a little more deliberate about it. But and like you, I'm not really going to leave these on the coffee table.
Right.
I mean, my whole point about journaling is you should do it for yourself, not for other people. But I'm going to put them aside somewhere. I enjoy already going and flipping through them. And like you said, when you're dead someday, if they want to read it, they can. Or if they want to use it to, start a fire, that's okay too. You're dead. It doesn't matter. But I'm mainly printing them for my own benefit. This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Squarespace. Go to squarespace.com/MPU and make your next move and enter offer code MPU at checkout to get 10% off your first purchase. So last week we got a call from a close friend who just left her company and is starting her own business, and she wanted to get started on the internet. She knew I was a nerd and she wanted to help me figure out who to hire. I told her not to hire anybody. Instead, I told her to set up a Squarespace site because with Squarespace, you're really covered with your new business, and they make it just so easy. She ended up coming over the house. We spent an hour, and now she has a beautiful website on Squarespace. And why shouldn't you use Squarespace for your business? With Squarespace, you can use insights to grow your business. If you've ever wondered where your site visits or sales are coming from and which channels are most effective, you can analyze all of that in Squarespace. Once you've got that data, you can improve your website and build marketing strategies based on your top keywords or most popular products and content. You can also sell products in an online store, whether you sell physical or digital products. Squarespace has the tools you need to get started selling online. And if you have any question about SEO tools, you can use the suite of integrated features and useful guides that help maximize prominence among search results. Setting up our friend was actually really fun. We really helped her get started, and she really understands it now. It's not that difficult to run a Squarespace website. Once you get it up and running, you don't have to rely on experts or friends to keep it going. You can do it yourself. So head to squarespace.com/MPU for a free trial with no credit card required. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code MPU to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/MPU. And when you decide to sign up, use the offer code MPU to get 10% off your first purchase and to show your support for the Mac Power Users. And we really appreciate that. Our thanks again to Squarespace for their support of the Mac Power Users and all of Relay FM.
So let's wrap this up by talking about things that we carry on our persons. What lives in your pockets most days?
A lot. I was just when we stumbled in this, it's like I actually carry a lot of stuff in my pockets, and I am definitely occasionally a cargo pant guy. But I also just in my jeans pockets keep a lot, and it's just kind of grown over the years. Left pocket for me is always iPhone. I started that with the very first iPhone, left pocket iPhone with the glass facing my skin, not the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the only thing that goes in there. But the right pocket keeps growing with stuff. I've got, as I got older, reading, I just can't read anymore without reading glasses. Sadly, if I open a book and I don't have my reading glasses on, I have no idea what it says. Somebody will send me a phone message and it's like, until I get my glasses. So But fortunately, it's not so bad that I can't just buy those cheaters off Amazon, and like for $10 or $15, you can get like 10 of them. So I keep them around the house in various places. But when you're out and about, you don't have them. Another thing I found on Amazon is these foldable reading glasses, and they have a little plastic case, and they fold on the bridge, so they get very small. And I've got a pair of those in my pocket at all times. So if we go to a restaurant or something, I can read. So that's one thing. AirPods also go in the right pocket. The when I'm at home, I keep a Leatherman in my pocket, and just like the idea of a flashlight, I just do all sorts of stuff where having a knife and a little screwdriver or whatever is kind of convenient, and I use it multiple times a day. I grew up with a pocket knife. The thing is, the world has changed in a lot of places I go these days. You go through security, so I generally leave it when I leave the house. I leave it at home. I have a little drawer for it, and in it goes before I go out the door. But those are the three things that are almost always in my pocket, in addition to like tissues and doggy bags. But that's my carry. Oh, and for my wallet, as I was saying earlier, I have a couple. I have the one that we talked about last year with the little AirTag thing in it. And that's cool, when I'm going out. But generally, I use that Peak Design one that magnetically attaches to my iPhone case. Something I didn't mention earlier is we do have a magnetic Apple iPhone charger, the little battery.
Yeah.
And Daisy and I share that, but she takes it more than I do these days because she's out more than I am. And it's just so small and convenient. But if I'm using it, that'll probably go in my pocket too. But I don't put it in the same pocket as the iPhone. I'm not really sure why. Honestly, I guess the better strategy would be to just keep it on your phone until it runs out of battery and then be done with it for the day. But as it is, I don't usually attach it until the phone gets down to like half charge.
Yeah. I've got a MagSafe battery pack as well. In fact, we've got two. I've got one and Mary has one. She's on the 13 mini, so she needs it more often than I do.
Yeah.
But if we go, camping or hiking, we'll both use those. So for me, it's iPhone in my front right pocket by itself. Nothing else goes in there. Again, a tradition dating back all the way to the first iPhone.
Yeah.
My wallet game has changed. For a long time, I was using the Tom Ben wallet. And recently a friend of mine was showing me his Bellroy card sleeve. And it's more minimal than I've ever gone, but I've been able to squeeze down into it. And it's really not much bigger than the Apple MagSafe wallet, but it can hold a bit more. Now, it's not MagSafe, right? It's a standalone thing, but I can slip it in a front pocket really easily. I'm not a back pocket wallet person. It goes in my front left pocket. And so it's not big and bulky. And it's worked really well for me. I've had it maybe 2 months, and I did black, of course, with the orange pull tab because I love orange. And I've been really happy with it. Not everybody can go down to this. In fact, one thing I've had to ditch is carrying my company, like my company card with me. So if I need to spend money as the company somewhere, which is not really that often in person, I got to get it out of my desk drawer. But it's probably good I don't have that on me anyways. So, but neat, I got insurance cards, debit card, credit card, and then I keep a little bit of cash and my driver's license, and it's worked out really nicely.
Yeah. The Peak Design, I think the max I can get it in is like 4 cards.
Yeah.
And so I don't carry a lot of stuff either. I think this is a little nicer than what I'm doing with the Peak Design, but I do like the little flap to pull stuff out. What else you got in your pocket?
So something else that is almost always on me, and it's been true now for over a decade, is I carry a field notes notebook with me. We've talked about this a lot in the past. I always have one. My current one is from like a printing from like 2012 or 2013. I have a bunch of them and just kind of pick a new one every month or anytime I fill one up, which is about once a month. And I take notes in meetings. So I was on a call this morning with my financial advisor and like took 2 pages of notes in our meeting. I keep track of, kind of what I'm doing throughout the day, or like, flipping through this one, there's part of a grocery list. Mike and I played a escape room game online a few weeks ago. So I have my like 4 pages of notes from that. And those pages look like I can't even comprehend what I wrote now. It's just a bunch of words and symbols that I'm sure meant something during the game.
Yeah.
And then I scan them and I keep them on a shelf here in the office. And it's been something I've done for, I mean, literally 10 years now. And the phone has never fully replaced it for me. I still find a lot of situations where I want to be able to write things down or sketch something or something like that.
Yeah. I have a Fisher Space Pen. It's one of those bullet ones that is very tiny. And I keep that in the slot where I keep my Leatherman. So when I take the knife out when I'm leaving, I put the pin in. You know, so when I'm out of the house, I keep a pin, and when I'm in the house, I keep a knife.
Yeah, I will carry a knife sometimes. It was actually a collaboration between the James Knife Company and Aaron Draplin, who's my all-time favorite graphic designer. James Knife Company sells several models. The one that I carry is the Folsom. And the Draplin edition is orange on the outside and black. Like, I don't know if it's anodized or what, but the blade is black. And I used to carry a knife all the time. And I have over the years have been in situations where I'm somewhere where I can't have it. And, you know, you got to bury it in a bush outside of a basketball game or something. So don't carry it every day. But it's always on my desk right next to my Stream Deck. And if I'm going to go somewhere where I think I'm going to need one, I'll grab it. But I also keep a Leatherman in my truck, and it's in the same place in my truck all the time. And so that's, if I'm out and about and I need one, I can always just reach in the truck and grab it.
Yeah, this Leatherman, this Folsom knife is nice. Wow.
Yeah, it's sweet.
And your Leatherman is bigger than mine. You've got like the saw and a bunch of other stuff on it.
Yeah, I figured because I'm not going to carry it with me all the time. And so I figured, well, let's get something that has a lot of options in it. And it does have a belt thing. So like, for instance, like if my brother's nonprofit is having an event or something, I don't know, and I'm like helping set up, then I'll throw it on my belt and just be super cool for the day. But most of the time it just lives in the truck and I can grab it when I need it.
Yeah, but it is funny how often you find use for needle nose pliers.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you can fix anything in the world with one of those.
Well, we both have a lot of stuff in our pockets. I guess that's what it comes down to.
We're nerdy people, you know. It's how it goes. And you know, I'm thankful to only have one phone. You know, I got a lot of friends who carry a personal phone and a work phone. Right? It's like, I'm so glad I don't have to contend with that. The only thing I would add to mine is you know, AirPods. They're either in my backpack or in my pocket or, you know, on my desk somewhere. I am test driving the new AirPods Pro, and so far I've been happy with them. And I did put you know, the new ones have a little lanyard loop on the case. Yeah. And so we just had some material laying around. So I fashioned like a bright red lanyard for it. Not that I'm wearing it around my wrist, but it makes it easier to find the AirPod case. And of course you can use Find My Now and it makes noises and stuff, but it makes it easier to spot. You know, if you tossed them on the kitchen counter and then someone came in and dumped their homework on top of it, a little bit easier to see.
I've got AirPods in my pocket or on my desk 24/7. I love them. I use those things for everything. I routinely use them in one ear more than two, you know, because if I'm listening to audio, like a podcast or an audiobook or something, I don't need it in both ears. And the same thing with phone calls, you know, and then that way there's always one fully charged. But I love AirPods. I feel like Apple just knocked it out of the park with that product.
Yeah, the whole lineup. I mean, even like the 2s and the 3s, you know, not to mention the Pros, they're doing such a good job with it. And they are just everywhere. Like on the conference call I was on earlier today with my financial guy, right? Like he's taking the call on a set of AirPods Pro. I was like, oh, hey, me too. Yeah. You know, they have, as the world has opened back up some, I have really noticed more than ever that AirPods are just out in the wild, and not even like at the gym or anything. Like I'm working out at home still, but like people running or, you know, in the grocery store. Like I feel like AirPods are everywhere, and Apple's done such a good job with this line. It's impressive. It makes me happy for like the old iPod days where you saw the old white earbuds going from someone's jacket pocket up to their ears. It has that vibe again, and I kind of dig it.
Well, you know, Stephen, it's always fun to go through this stuff and talk about it. It does evolve over time, but it's not like revolutionary. It's evolutionary, and it's fun sharing it. if you are out there and you've got some cool stuff on your desk or in your bag that you think we should have covered, go to talk.macpowerusers.com and sound off.
Yeah, this will be a fun thread to follow.
Yeah. In the meantime, thank you to our sponsors. That's our friends over at 1Password, TextExpander, Electric, and Squarespace. We're the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU, and we'll see you next time.